The Denver Nuggets get trounced in game 7 in OKC. My goodness, the OKC Thunder win 125-93 in a game that looked like it was about to go a very different direction in the first quarter. But ultimately, the Denver Nuggets just outplayed, really, from the end of the first quarter through the end of the game. The Nuggets across the board just did not have enough juice. Aaron Gordon tries to do the Willis Reed and will his team to a victory by showing up and also playing. But overall, the Nuggets, they just didn't have enough inside their engines to be able to get the job done today. And honestly, y'all, in the first quarter, the Denver Nuggets were up 21-10. 21-10. And it looked like the Nuggets were going to be able to kind of ride the wave and ride the momentum. But just what's been very similar and very true all year. The Nuggets, when the starters have been on the court versus the OKC Thunder, they've won the minutes, they've been dominant. But when the starters leave the game and you start getting Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, or Russell Westbrook in the game, the Thunder change up how they're guarding Denver. Really, a lot of the spacing and offensive flow disappears, and that's when the Thunder all series have gone on their run. And just overall, just not a good enough effort all the way around. But look, first and foremost, I want to give the Nuggets shout out for, I think, for getting into this position. You know, obviously losing your head coach, losing your GM, the injuries they dealt with, obviously in the playoffs. Aaron Gordon hurting his hamstring obviously affected the direction of the game in game 7. He just was not able to be the mobile defender, offensive player that we know him to be, but he fought through it as hard as he could and has 8 points, 11 rebounds today. He absolutely is going to have a long summer, just taking time off, taking care of his body, especially with the calf injury. I think Nikola Jokic in the first half played really well. Jokic ended the game with 20 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. But in the second half, especially in that third quarter, Caruso started fronting him like crazy. They were sending help weak side, and he just did not, control the space enough and dominate the space enough, because I think he was consistently worried about the foul calls, either going against him by being too aggressive, but also getting beat on the weak side multiple times by Cason Wallace or Caruso or J-Dub on his offhand when he was trying to secure the basketball. But the Nuggets were doing a horrible job on entry passes and stuff as well. And Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. had 6 points in the first half. And really, OKC, they got up 46-60 at the half, and even then, the Nuggets would have had an opportunity and a chance. But just overall, once the second half kind of ended, really the Nuggets, they had a chance. They were tied at one point, but OKC, as they've done all year, you know, they put teams in a bind where even if the score is close and or tight, they can just go on these runs, because once they start putting their bench unit in the game, everything kind of just goes from there. OKC called a timeout, 41-42. They called a timeout at 41-42 with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. And then from that point on, the Nuggets, they scored 5 points. OKC scored 18 points from that point on. And really, that was kind of just the end of the story all the way around. You know, some of this is as simple as, I think OKC was obviously clearly the better team, and they deserved to win. I think that SGA, J-Dub, Chet, Hart, they've all have done a tremendous job this whole year, and they all played a really good game today. And I think they deserve a lot of credit. Caruso, I think, was the second best player in the series for them. Consistently great, consistently dominant for Alex Caruso. He just played a terrific game. J-Dub had a bounce-back game, had 24, 5, and 7 today for him. And the starters, well, really the starters, but the bench, Caruso off the bench is a plus 38 or plus 40. Cason Wallace off the bench is a plus 38. It just, everything kind of changed. And in the first half, I mentioned this, the Nuggets go to their bench. Russell Westbrook was a minus 23. Peyton Watson was a minus 20. And Jokic was out there for a lot of that. They just don't have the personnel to be able to deploy multiple players. But on the other end, Caruso and Wallace came into the game. They were a plus 14 and a plus 20 in the first half, respectively. So I think what happened is that the Nuggets, because of the amount of injuries from Michael Porter Jr. to Aaron Gordon, apparently, and Jamal Murray was obviously still dealing with sickness, they didn't have, I think, the pieces to be able to operate at a high level consistently. And like I said, once the starters started going out of the game, OKC was eventually able to find a rhythm and find momentum going into the game. And, like I said, Jokic only took 9 shots today. He took 11 free throws because he was getting fouled a lot around the rim. And all those free throws came in the first half. So literally everything started to kind of change at the end of the first half. And even Jokic had 17 points going into half. He ends the game with 20. They completely changed up their defensive coverages. They stopped worrying about anybody else on the Nuggets roster. And Murray looked a tad bit slower today too. Again, I don't know if it was just a sickness. It also could have just been the fact that he was just purebred exhausted and did not have the energy to be able to do it. But he just also was looking very slow, looking ragged. They just didn't up and down have the players to be able to show up and do the job. And then also Christian Brown off the bench looked really good in the first half, especially. He had 19 points. He had 12 in the first half. Jokic and Christian Brown combined for 29 points of the Nuggets, 46 points in the first half. I think he's really made a lot of developments and took a lot of steps this year. But some of this is just simple as, like, I feel like I've had this conversation multiple times now. It's just they don't have the roster 1 through 8. And this has been something I've said consistently, and it showed up again today. You thought that the starters would be able to keep it close, but I think even for myself, maybe again, if Aaron Gordon was healthy and Michael Porter Jr. was healthy, then maybe things go a little different. But the AG factor changed everything because Aaron Gordon as a weak side defender, just the off-ball stuff, the post stuff, he couldn't do any of it physically. But he still had 11 rebounds in this game. He was still fighting. And overall, man, I just think that this team, they're just going to have to be a lot of decisions made about this team. And they're going to have to figure out exactly what they want to be, how they want the team to look, and where they want to go from here. Because just overall, they just weren't good enough. And it made a huge difference down the stretch of what this series was and down the stretch of the games. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. I think, Jokic, I think down the stretch of the series and start the series was really good, 31, 13, and 7 the last 3 games. I think he started to figure a lot of different things out. But I also think, like I did today, things kind of got out of wax. The first game, he had 42, 22, and 6 or whatever. And I think he had really bad shooting games after that. And then he kind of figured it out from that point on. And I think Jokic offensively, he was going. But at the end of the day, like the way that teams are allowed to guard Joker, and I'm talking about from the Nuggets end, the Nuggets do not put enough pressure on the other side of the ball and off the ball, I think, for Jokic to be able to deal with some of the stuff he's dealing with. If Porter's not consistently hitting any shots or adding any off-ball value, if Porter's not there, if when you get to the point where, Brown obviously stretches the way they're guarding him. I mean, just up and down the roster, I think they're going to have to make some decisions. I think in the bench, I've been consistent on this all year. I think if you're bringing Russell Westbrook and Julian Strawther and Peyton Watson and Zeke Naji, Dario Saric, your 2 of your 6 highest paid players are both players you're not playing in the regular season games, let alone playoff games. That matters. Like, you get to these settings, you need to be able to play guys. You couldn't play the next highest paid players on your roster. And I think they went super young. I also told you, like, going super young, 2nd round picks, late 1st round picks, you cannot get consistency out of those players. Whereas OKC, they're able to go to Caruso, who's a veteran. They're able to go to Case and Wallace, who was drafted very high. And then obviously even J-Dub, Chet, they have multiple options. And I think that ended up being the difference in the series all the way up and down, is that the Nuggets bench just simply wasn't good enough. And they got outscored and dominated off the bench the entire series, and really throughout the majority of the playoffs. So, some of this, I think the Nuggets are really going to have to figure out what they're going to do about their 2nd and 3rd player. Yeah, I mean, it's just, is this going to be enough from the Jamal Murray front? I think yes, sir. I think absolutely. But I think, is this going to be enough with the Porter front? Is this going to be enough with the fact that you're going to need other things on your roster? Like, they have to figure out how they're going to substantiate the rest of this prime with Jokic. This is his age 29 season. Next is his age 30. He had a career regular season this year. But even with that, they only won 50 games. And again, if they have one more player, maybe they get by. I think they get by OKC. I think they could have gotten by OKC if Porter and Gordon were healthy. But again, you get yourself another player, get yourself another opportunity, then you get to add to your unit, then you can get to another player. You can get to another level because you have people to go to. I mean, really, it's just that simple. The team is just so out of wax and has been. And I think this series, the difference was that the starters have shown, even with a diminished Porter, they can beat anybody. But once you start getting to the non-starter minutes, everything fell apart, including even in the Clipper series. And they had a better starting five than OKC. They had a better starting five than OKC. Their starters outplayed OKC starters. But what you can't consistently have is that once you start going to your depth pieces and your bench, yeah, it is what it is. Like, you can't have it. So it's really unfortunate, just simply because I think that, again, if everybody was healthy, it could have been different, for sure. But I'm saying also, yeah, I mean, it's just sucks. Cause I think for me, I picked the Nuggets to win in 7 because I thought they had enough to be able to win the series, and I think the starters they could have. But I mean, it's really hard to talk about today's game just because today's game was so contingent on the fact that they didn't have, from their third and fourth best player, they didn't have enough to add to the roster around them. Because if Gordon is going to be that hampered, and a Porter who looks like a completely different jump shooter right now, he cannot hit those shots at all. If he can't do it, then the Nuggets are just not in a place with the team they have to be able to respond. And, again, injuries, I get it. But Porter's averaged 9 points, 5 rebounds, and shot 34% from 3 and 39% from the field this playoffs. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really, really hard to win that way, y'all. It just is. So some of this is just quite as simple as the Nuggets really, really are going to have to find some solutions to some things. And they're going to have to really be able to find a way to, around Murray and Jokic, since that seems to be the direction they're going in, to have enough players on the roster to be able to help them when they need it. Because right now, I mean, it looks bad. I mean, it looks horrible. They run into situations multiple times a game where they just need somebody to do something. And David Ottoman, I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done, but I think he deserves criticism for today. Like, again, when the second quarter started, the Nuggets were up, I think, by 3. Let me check. At the end of the first quarter, like I said, Nuggets got up 21-10. They were up 26-21. The Nuggets starters were at plus 11 in their minutes. The bench was a -6 immediately. But then OKC went on a 6-0 run to start the quarter. Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and Peyton Watson were the lineup. OKC went on a 19-5 run as soon as Russ and Peyton Watson came in the game. I mean, really, it's just as simple as I wish David would have made some different decisions, but also too, like, his options are so limited. They're so limited that they don't know exactly where they're supposed to go to get consistent help all the way up and down. And I think legitimately, the starters by the second half, I think they got gassed. I think because they just didn't have enough in them to keep the pace they had been going at as of late. I think that Game 6 win was huge. I think I think if the game is different in the second quarter, they have an opportunity. But I think being able to only trust your 5-man unit with the starters is one thing. And then having Porter with an injury who's not contributing this series is one thing. But then also having Aaron Gordon not be able to move and or play as he normally would affected even what happened in the second quarter. All that stuff put together, I think, is what led to the diminishing product of the rest of the game. And then I think in the third quarter, OKC completely changed the way it was playing. They started Alex Caruso, started fronting Jokic and trying to be as physical as possible at the spot. Jokic, I think, could have responded differently and been more physical. But again, I think he's clearly worried about the offensive foul calls he got on Caruso early this series in Dort. And all the way up and down, they just would throw so much at Joker, and Christian would have open looks. Jamal had open looks. Michael Porter Jr. had open looks. Russell Westbrook had open looks, and they just couldn't convert them. So it sucks. I definitely wish that the Nuggets would have made different decisions this year with putting the roster together, putting the team together, and I think that's what lost them. That's what lost it everything. So, yeah, it definitely Caruso and Wallace had the highest ever plus minus off the bench in the game 7 ever. And I think it changes the game. So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see kind of what happens from this point on. But I'll be curious to see how the Nuggets try to respond to everything. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think that, like I said, Aaron Gordon deserves a lot of respect, like a whole lot of respect for how hard he fought and what he was willing to do. But yeah, it just sucks that I think they're not in a situation where they're able to rely on secondary players enough to be able to get just momentum pushes consistently. And I think that's the difference between OKC. That's why OKC won, I think, for me. It's like their consistency to go to other options and go to other players off the bench and be better than those players ended up mattering. And I think that ended up being the story of the series. Like, they don't legit, OKC doesn't win without Caruso. Caruso was that good in this series. Shout out for the super chat, CT Hulu. Denver Nuggets need to trade the team, the coach, trade the stadium, leave us Jokic, Gordon Brown. We'll figure out the rest later. Yeah, I mean, definitely understand the frustration there. Like I said, I don't think that they played well enough around him in order to make some of those things happen. But yeah, it sucks. The Denver Nuggets lose Game 7. Just a really, really, really difficult way to go. But OKC deserves that win, especially just, again, from 1 to 9. They're just much better than Denver. Again, if the starters are healthy, I think it would have been a different story. But you got to give them the credit. They capitalized on the momentum. They did the work, and they won. And so OKC, I think, on their way to win this first championship. But we'll see. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. More episodes coming up. A lot of off-season content. Lockdown Nuggets coming up as well. A lot of stuff to talk about, y'all. I know it's been a crazy season. The regular season was so unenjoyable across the board. The Denver Nuggets, they played 14 games in this playoff. They go 7-7 in the playoffs. And I think they prove that, again, they're 1-2 guys away from being able to legitimately win another title. I think 1 or 2 guys away, a bench players away from winning another title. And I think today was another game that they could have did it. So a spectacular year. I think Jokic the best player in the world again this year. I think Jamal had a really good regular season at points. I think he had a really good playoff at points. I think AG had a great season post-injury. I think Michael Porter had really good, strong spots this year. Christian Brown had a career year. Russ had some really good moments. Julian had good moments. But like I said, just compared to the rest of the top of the league, their 6 through 9 is the worst by far. I think that they're one of the 4. I think if you ask me right now, I think Denver is one of the 4 best teams in the sport. I think they should have beat OKC, but it just came down to the bench units, and I think that made all the difference, y'all. So great season, y'all. I know it was frustrating. It was really frustrating, I think, to watch as a fan. But y'all, we got more great content coming up, y'all. Shout out to y'all. Swipe again. Y'all know y'all my people. Hey, see y'all on the other side.